Hi YouTube, Maika here. Today we are going to get into how you can create an elevator pitch for your book, and it'll be super easy. So let's get into it. So before we get into how you can create an elevator pitch for your book, I think it's important for us to talk about why you need to have an elevator pitch in the first place. Okay, first up, you have written your book, you're so proud of it, it's amazing, it's finished, your product is complete, and now you have to start talking to people about it. And that's honestly where it might get a little bit tricky. Like the hardest part, I would say, hands down, is sitting down and being able to write the book. So if you've already done that, pat yourself on the back, great job. But now when you have to talk about it, that's where you can get a little bit uncomfortable and not always feel the most natural in speaking about your book. I think it's something that a lot of people struggle with, is when it comes time to talk about yourself, you don't always know how. And the best way to get better at doing that is by practicing. So now we're going to get into how you can create an elevator pitch for your book. So a little story time. So for Maritza and I, when we first wrote our book, our first book, Dear Haiti, Love ALAINE, we were so ready and excited to talk about it. Like honestly, anyone who asked me like, oh, you know, what do you do on your off time? I would be like, oh, I write a book. Let me tell you every single little detail about the book. And one thing that I learned very quickly is that there is nothing like the sight of seeing someone's eyes glaze over when you're telling them about your book to realize that you might need to change the approach in which you're going about telling them about your book. So it led me to do some more research into how I can better talk about my book and get people excited about it. And I came across the elevator pitch. So what is an elevator pitch, first off? An elevator pitch is what salespeople use to essentially talk about whatever it is that they are talking about, the product that they're selling. And the idea of it comes from the concept that, let's say you walk into an elevator and there's someone who's in the elevator with you and they're the potential perfect customer or client for your product, and you only have the length of an elevator ride to tell them about the product that you have, or your book in this case, to get them excited about it. I'm going to practice what I'm preaching right now and give you an example of Dear Haiti, Love ALAINE's elevator pitch. All right, here we go. Hold on, let me get ready. Dear Haiti, Love ALAINE is about 17-year-old Elaine Bopala. She gets sent to Haiti after a prank goes terribly wrong, and while she's there, she learns more about a family curse that's been plaguing her family for generations. It just so happens that her mom, who is a very high-profile journalist, is laying low after her very own political fiasco. While Elaine is in Haiti, she learns more about that family curse and realizes that it might be behind the very strange outbursts that her mom has been having. And she sets out on trying to break that curse and learns about her family history, her Haitian heritage, and more about herself as a Haitian American. So there you have it. That is the 30-second pitch for Dear Haiti, Love ALAINE. Now, just so you know, it took me about 3 or 4 times to get that in one take. And it honestly, it goes to show you, because this book came out on September 3rd, 2019, and it goes to show you that no matter what, it's going to take some time and practice for you to get comfortable speaking about your book succinctly. So as an author, you're going to be talking about your book everywhere you go. It's going to be at conferences, it's going to be with friends, it'll be on a panel, it could be in your dreams. It doesn't matter where it is, you're going to have to talk about your book. And you want to make sure that you are prepared for whatever situation might arise in which you will need to do that. And it was funny because for Maritza and I, when we were on our book tour for Dear Haiti, Love ALAINE, one of the places that we stopped in was in Atlanta. We had an amazing panel with Gilly, Segal, Kimberly Jones, and Nick Stone, as well as, of course, with me and Maritza. So it was amazing. It was a wonderful time. And Nick was our moderator, if you will, which is really great because Kim and Gilly wrote a book together called I'm Not Dying With You Tonight, which of course I think a few people might have heard about right now, but we'll be able to include a link to that as well. But we were talking about what that process looks like in both of us, or the two groups of us, being co-authors and writing in that situation. And out of nowhere, before we even got started, Nick was like, okay, really quickly, tell everybody what's your book about in 30 seconds or less, go.
It's about 2 girls, 1 black, 1 white, who survived the night in a race riot. Will they make it home?
It's entitled Dear Haiti, Love ALAINE. It's about 17-year-old Elaine Bopala, who is a Miami Haitian American girl who ends up getting in trouble at school defending her.
Damn.
Of course, this might not happen to everybody in real life, where someone randomly stops you on the street and says, you have 30 seconds, tell me about your book, or else. Well, she didn't say or else, but you know what I mean. But if that happens, you want to be able to like spew it out and get it out and get people excited and compelled enough to learn more. And that is just an example of a situation in which us having our elevator pitch ready enabled us to be able to talk about it succinctly in front of a crowd full of people. Now, it's not always going to be a very high pressure situation like this in which you're talking about your book, but it might help to think of it in that way, because it'll give you a little bit of a fire up under your butt to make sure that you know exactly how to talk about your book. And one of the places that we found that we talk about our book a lot is when we're in conference or going to conferences. So we've been speaking with all types of people throughout this publishing journey, and one of the times in which it's really crucial for you to be able to talk about your book is with booksellers. Booksellers are so crucial to our publishing ecosystem, and you want to be able to get somebody excited about your book, especially that, you know, we know that booksellers are doing the hard work in terms of hand selling your book and making sure that it gets into people's hands. And you want to be able to talk about your book in a way that when somebody goes to then talk about your book with someone else, they will have a little guide, if you will, that you've given them in the way in which you present your book. So those are some of the reasons and why you should have an elevator pitch ready. So now we're going to get into how you can create that elevator pitch.